Before we begin, take a moment. Put your phone aside, silence the world around you, and step into the smoke-filled battlefields of 1815. This isn't just history, it's the final act of an empire. Napoleon, his pride. Wellington, his patience. Blücher, his vengeance. One last gamble, one final stand. Welcome to Waterloo. Spring 1814. For over a decade, one name, one man had haunted the battlefields of Europe like a thundercloud. Napoleon Bonaparte, the self-proclaimed Emperor of the French, who rose from obscurity to dominate a continent through sheer force of will and war. His empire, vast, defiant, had stretched from the frozen rivers of Russia to the sun-scorched hills of Spain, and after years of bloodshed, Europe rallied, united, and brought him down. Pressured, cornered, Napoleon abdicated. He was sent into exile, cast off to the lonely isle of Elba, floating like a forgotten thought in the Mediterranean. In his place, the Bourbon king Louis XVIII returned, an echo of a monarchy many believed should have stayed buried. But France was restless. The whispers began almost immediately. Napoleon would return, and not as a prisoner, as a liberator. The nobles had returned too, draped in velvet, cloaked in arrogance. With them came memories of the revolution, of guillotines, of liberty once promised, then betrayed. And far away, in the chandelier-lit chambers of Vienna, Europe's victors bickered like spoiled heirs, redrawing borders, dividing lands, gloating. But Napoleon was watching, waiting. The man who had ruled empires was about to gamble everything again. Just 10 months after exile, he escaped. Elba, once his cage, was now behind him. Napoleon Bonaparte back on French soil. The soldiers sent to arrest him, they didn't fire. They joined him, and as he marched north, village by village, town by town, France opened its arms. Crowds cheered, flags waved. The emperor had returned. In Paris, he was once more enthroned, and beyond France's borders, the world panicked. Europe's rivals forgot their quarrels in a heartbeat. They called him an outlaw, a threat, and once again they assembled armies to destroy him. But Napoleon wasn't waiting. He knew the clock was ticking. Before enemy forces could unite and descend on France, he would take the fight to them. Divide, conquer. His targets, the Prussians under General Blücher, hardened, disciplined, and the British-led coalition under the Duke of Wellington, firmly entrenched in Belgium. If Napoleon could strike fast, if he could break them apart, he just might win peace on his terms. But even he knew time wasn't his ally, and together those armies dwarfed his own. To succeed, Napoleon must keep the enemy divided. If the British and Prussians unite, his hopes vanish. There's only one path forward. Isolate them. Destroy them. One by one. He surges across the border near Charleroi, driving a wedge between his foes. Then he dispatches Marshal Ney and the left wing to seize a vital crossroads, Coimbra. There, Ney finds resistance. Wellington's forces, still forming, still scattered, scramble into position. French assaults pound them again and again, but the Allies hold. Meanwhile, Napoleon confronts the Prussians near the village of Ligny. The fighting is brutal, relentless. His army claws out a hard-won victory, but the enemy refuses to break. Even old Blücher, nearly 70, leads a cavalry charge through chaos. His horse is shot from under him. He's almost captured. Almost. The Prussians retreat, but not in ruin. So Napoleon sends Marshal Grouchy after them, hoping to finish the job. Then he turns to face Wellington. But Wellington now knows. News of Blücher's defeat reaches him the next morning. He retreats, rain-soaked, battered, toward Brussels, to a ridge near a village called Waterloo. There he will make his stand. Wellington chooses his ground with precision. Behind a low ridge, shielded from artillery, his army waits. Hougoumont guards the right, a fortress-like farmhouse. La Haye-Sainte anchors the center. Papelotte protects the left. All manned, all ready. Still, his army is a patchwork. British, Dutch, Germans, some veterans, many not. They must hold long enough for the Prussians to arrive. If not, Waterloo won't just be the end of a battle. It will be the end of Europe's fragile peace. Sunday morning dawns bright and clear. Napoleon's orders are in motion. Grouchy must keep the Prussians away. Napoleon will crush Wellington and march on Brussels. But things don't go according to plan. Marshal Grouchy, tasked with keeping the Prussians away, finds himself bogged down at Wavre, skirmishing with their rear guard. He believes he's holding them back. But the real danger, grimly, the main Prussian army is already on the move, slipping past him, heading straight for Waterloo. Shift to battlefield tension, and back at Waterloo, Napoleon waits. Overnight rain has turned the fields to muck, thick, clinging, unforgiving. His cavalry can't charge. His artillery sinks into the mire. So he delays. Slow pause. Waits for the sun. Waits for the soil to firm. But every hour he hesitates. Weighty, the clock turns against him. And somewhere beyond the trees, the Prussians are coming. The clash begins around 11 a.m. Napoleon makes the first move. He targets Wellington's right flank, ordering an assault on the walled farmhouse of Hougoumont. It's a feint, a trap. The goal? Draw Allied forces away from the center when Napoleon plans to strike with force. But Hougoumont holds. British and German troops dig in. The fighting is brutal, close, unrelenting. At one point, French attackers burst through the main gate, but defenders slam it shut behind them, sealing them in. They're cut down to the last man. Later, Wellington would call Hougoumont the turning point. By midday, the sky roars. A thunderous cannonade begins. 80 French guns open fire.
The Allied center takes the brunt.
Most of Wellington's troops lie behind a low ridge, shielded somewhat. But the earth shakes. Cannonballs rip through soil and bone alike. Men vanish. Screams echo. Lines buckle. Then, 1:30 p.m., Napoleon unleashes the next wave. French infantry, shoulder to shoulder, march through fields blackened by fire. But waiting for them, hidden behind that ridge, are musket lines. A storm of lead rips into the French columns, and then thunder of a different kind. British heavy cavalry, charging, screaming, steel flashing in sunlight. The French break. They scatter. 2 sacred eagle standards fall into British hands as the fields run red with chaos. The British cavalry, flushed with adrenaline, drunk on the thrill of victory, push too far. They're scattered, exhausted, vulnerable. Suddenly, French cavalry thunder down upon them. The clash is violent, unforgiving. Amidst the chaos, Major General Sir William Ponsonby falls. The Union Brigade is shattered. By 4 p.m., Marshal Ney misreads the shifting winds of war. He sees movement, assumes retreat, and orders a massive cavalry charge to finish the job. But he's wrong, dead wrong. The Allies are not fleeing, they are ready. The British form tight, bristling squares, bayonets like teeth. The French cavalry charge again, and again, and again, but the squares hold. Without artillery or infantry support, Ney's assault bleeds out. Meanwhile, Blücher's Prussians arrive from the east. They slam into Plançois. Napoleon's right flank erupts in fire. To contain the breach, Napoleon sends reinforcements he cannot spare. At 6 p.m., the French finally seize La Haye-Sainte. Now, cannons roll forward. Point-blank fire tears into Wellington's lines. Men packed tight, no escape. For a moment, just a moment, the Allied line shudders, on the brink of collapse. But Napoleon's position is unraveling too. The tide is turning. With Prussian forces pouring in, relentless, determined, and French numbers dwindling, Napoleon makes his final move. He calls in the Imperial Guard. Veterans of countless battles, feared across Europe. They are his last hope, his ultimate gamble. As dusk cloaks the field, 7:30 p.m., 3,000 elite troops march through mud and blood, past their emperor, toward the Allied center. Silent, unshaken, resolute. But Wellington's men are waiting. Redcoats rise from behind the ridge. Volleys of musket fire tear into the guard. Men fall, waves crash. But they keep coming. Then, bayonets glint. The Allied line surges forward, and the unthinkable happens. The Imperial Guard breaks. The invincible retreats. Wellington sees his moment. Full advance! Prussians retake Plançois. Napoleon's right flank crumbles. Word spreads. The Guard is defeated. The army is surrounded. Panic erupts. Rifles are dropped. Soldiers run. The proud Grande Armée dissolves into chaos. Only the old Guard remains, resolute in the storm. Their stand is heroic, but hopeless. They fight to the last, to buy time for their emperor, who slips away. Napoleon abandons his carriage, Prussian cavalry close behind. The battlefield is won. Later that night, under a quiet, bruised sky, Wellington and Blücher meet outside what had once been Napoleon's headquarters, a modest inn called La Belle Alliance. Blücher suggests the name for their victory, but Wellington shakes his head and chooses another. Waterloo, the village where he'd made his stand. The Battle of Waterloo was, as Wellington would later call it, a damn near run thing, and one of the bloodiest of the century. Over 50,000 men dead or wounded, 23,000 Allied, 27,000 French. Fields of agony. Many wounded left for days, alone, exposed, as the few medical teams fought to save what lives they could. Napoleon's defeat was absolute. There would be no second return, no new army to summon, no empire to rebuild. This time, he surrendered to the British. They sent him not to Elba, but far beyond, across the Atlantic, to Saint Helena, a lonely island under constant guard. There, the great emperor faded into exile and died 6 years later. But Waterloo was not just an end, it was a beginning. The guns fell silent and stayed that way as Europe entered an era of uneasy peace. Britain would not fight another great war on the continent for nearly a century, until 1914. And then, 40 years after the smoke cleared, a lens captured the past. The first pioneers of photography took portraits of Napoleon's surviving soldiers, old now, in their 70s, 80s, still wearing their uniforms, faces creased by time yet proud, eyes that had seen the thunder of empires,